I'm Christoph Saras, Research Associate from the Department of Architecture from the Technical University of Munich. Today I'm speaking about less structure, more impact, evaluation we did of structured design thinking methods in higher education in architecture. I will briefly explain the context why we did this study and then explain the framework of architectural thinking and design process for what we are heading for with the study. Afterwards, I will explain the methodology and also the 4 tested formats we evaluated, then briefly show the results of the evaluation and the key findings, and close my presentation with the implications and an outlook for further research. Coping with rising complexities has challenged management disciplines to look at other approaches and other methods. In design, they found some very interesting aspects to deal with wicked problems and apply them to managerial process. On the other side, design-driven disciplines as industrial design or mechanical engineering and software engineering have developed design thinking methods which can be applied to managerial problems and also problems of innovation. Architecture, in contrast, has not developed a design thinking method to connect with other industries beyond building design and also to connect with innovation. So being at the forefront of design thinking for the past century. We questioned that and tried to see, okay, can these design thinking methods applied in industry be also beneficial for architects, or maybe can the alternative thinking of architects be related to management challenges of innovation and also make new forms of design thinking methods. We did this study in a bigger, larger project funded by the Erasmus Plus and together with 5 leading universities in architecture. It was a project of strengthening architecture and the built environment research and also to foster architectural entrepreneurship and to make architecture students think about other possibilities beyond building design and applying their skills and potentials into new fields. Architectural thinking in this case and the design process is unique, and we questioned why it did not participate in design thinking methods in management topics or in innovation topics. The architectural thinking is directed to a betterment what ought to be and does not focus that much on market feasible applications or scalable business models. It has a long-term view, speaking of that the user needs are not in the first place relevant, but they need to be balanced out with future perspective. Current user needs are only a moment of time in the architectural thinking, and architects try to relate their solutions to a larger context, also in context of time. They're optimistic with a quest for synthesis, they embrace complexity. Architectural thinking sustains uncertainty until the very end, and it is a reflective and constructive practice with an art of critique from which we think for impactful innovations it can be a very important contribution. And the use of non-verbal boundary objects is very special in architectural thinking and the design process and could be also very beneficial to creative and innovative formats which are applied in other industries. The hypothesis we developed from that is that architecture students, through their skills and knowledge, can positively impact innovation methods and also collaborate very well. The second hypothesis, they structured, rapid and collaborative innovation methods from other fields can be also applied in architecture and the built environment. And the third hypothesis is that creativity formats are applicable and useful in linking emerging topics from industry back to university. We investigated these 3 hypotheses in 4 formats. We made a setup for these formats, a call for application. We selected students, we trained facilitators. We also prepared agendas to conduct these formats. We started with a design sprint from Google Ventures for 5 days. Then we did a creative business game with 2 days and a smaller number of students. Then we did a creative method design thinking lab based on the enterprise design thinking method of IBM. And in the fourth format, we did a community design lab, which was more a free format we developed based on the previous 3. We evaluated the formats with questionnaires and interviews and deducted then key findings. The formats were all rated very positively. The structure was seen as very supportive on the one side, but also as constraining on the other side, especially from architecture students participating in that field, because they provided other tools than they normally use to work, design, and also develop ideas. In the evaluation here, you see from the questionnaires that the design sprint and the enterprise design thinking lab, as well as the community design lab, were very high rated in aspects of consciousness raised, in aspects of the process, the collaboration and the results and the benefits. The creative business game was the least rated. This was very positive for us to see this view, but we compared it also with another perspective about how we set up these workshops and these formats. In the design sprint and the enterprise design thinking lab, there was a detailed agenda, the facilitation was provided, but only catering and infrastructure elements were partially provided. Then the disciplines were differently represented, but the submitted reports by students differed a lot in all of these formats and across these formats. The community design lab, so being well rated and super rated by the students, did not have that much impact on the project. The structured formats of design sprint and enterprise design sprint, design thinking lab, did produce a lot of very interesting and high quality reports. So the findings we deducted from that structure has a positive impact, but it influences the direction of outcome. In case of the design thinking lab by IBM, a lot of application and digital solutions were developed. The design sprint was more open. Professional facilitation has a very positive impact on the overall results, and the formulation of the challenge and the format related to the awareness and the acceptance of the students. So the more impactful, the more societal oriented the format was, the more applications we received, especially from design students. Minor findings: we had at minimum 3 days to conduct these creativity and innovation formats. Then incentives material-wise did not make a difference, and they are questionable. People did not participate to win a prize and did not participate because there were a lot of free lunches included. They participated mostly because they were interested and also were interested in working interdisciplinary. Diversity matters gender-wise, nationality-wise, but also from the level of studies. If we mix it with bachelor students and master students, the dynamics were much more interesting. The hypotheses we put in the beginning were partially confirmed. So the involvement of architectural students did raise the level of ideas. The elements of structure were valuable for us at the architectural faculty to see, okay, we should develop one method at our department as well to get more structure in some sorts of design processes. And the third hypothesis was proven that we could take emerging challenges from practice back to higher education. For us as implication, very important, architecture design thinking need to develop an own method to be applied in other industries, because there are peculiarities of using boundary objects, of using other tools than sticky notes, than, for example, prefabricated or preset canvases, where architects can really creatively use much more tools and contribute that to innovation methods. With challenges in the built environment rising, it will be very important to have such an architectural design thinking method, and also to contribute to a discussion of that. And in the end, to have a new way of conducting research with this method. Thank you very much. You can download these reports on this QR code on our website.